What's up, everybody? Astrum Lux Lucis here from One World Revolution. Excited to be recording and sharing with you the very first ever episode of High Voltage Impact. It is a podcast I am starting with just anybody who wants to talk to me about music and everything about music, how music has impacted, influenced your life. And if you're a musician, how music has inspired you to pursue music and what that looks like for you now, and just everything and anything about music. So without further ado, we'll get started. And I have my very first guest, my very first guinea pig here. Very grateful that he's volunteered to be the guinea pig for me on this first episode. His name is Greg Hoy, and he's an awesome singer-songwriter. And we actually met on Craigslist. He was looking for a bass player to go on tour. Mm-hmm. And as you know, I somewhat play bass. I wouldn't call myself a bass player, but I can play bass. And so I was excited to, potentially get that gig. But, things kind of worked in ways that they do, and everything worked out for Greg and everything worked out for me. I didn't necessarily get to go on tour, but he got a good bass player and they got to go on tour, and it was really cool to kind of watch behind the scenes what they were doing there on social media and everything else. So Greg, I will turn it over to you. You've been a musician for a while.
Yeah.
What was the thing that the band or the concert or the song that got you to be like, yeah, I want to be a rock star when I grow up?
That's first of all, I just want to say we are setting a high bar for hair on this podcast right now.
We are.
I mean, look at us. I should have done a little more.
We could call this the High Voltage Impact Hair podcast.
This is what happens when you get the high voltage.
Exactly.
It's funny. It's a great question, because I've always had these like weird ideas of what inspired me, and maybe everybody does. Like, you kind of think one thing, and then that kind of becomes your like seed of like truth or whatever for your inspiration. But what I realized very, very recently was, as much as I knew Eddie Van Halen was like my first, the first person I saw that inspired me to want to play on a stage, like a rock musician, it was actually his keyboard playing. And when Jump came out, which was, I guess, apparently, I was too young to know it was such a controversial moment for people to like hear this new Van Halen record and it's like slathered in like, fake horn sounds off a keyboard. But I was like, I think I was 10 or 11 when 1984 came out. And I remember hearing Jump on the radio, and it literally like, I like couldn't stop listening. Like, it was like, I became obsessed with that sound, which wasn't really it's rock and roll, of course. And then my mom bought me like one of those like little keyboards at like, whatever, the store. And that became like the beginning for me. Was I joined a band playing keyboards.
Wow.
Isn't that funny? And I didn't realize this till recently, till he passed. Because of course he became an influence in other ways, like just as a musician and how he, just how he portrayed himself on stage, and like the amount of experimentation he did throughout his career. Like, I kind of had to go backwards from that point. But yeah, I gotta say it was Eddie Van Halen, and probably seeing the video for Jump with like David Lee Roth jumping in the air with stretch pants and that whole vibe, man, that did it for me. I'm like, I want to try this. I want to see where this goes.
Yeah. There's something really exciting about just performers who perform, and just, give it their all on stage, and just, aren't afraid to just let it all hang out and look stupid if they, not that they look stupid. Like, I actually think like shoegazers and people who just stand there with their eyes closed look more stupid than like, David Lee Roth jumping around doing karate moves and whatnot. Like, that's badass, like flips on stage, and like, I want to be able to do that, Well,
like the idea of like, here's the room, here's the energy, let's all connect on it.
Yeah.
That's what appealed to me. And that, when I think about all the other bands that came sort of after that moment for me when I was 11, they all shared that, like AC/DC, and even more modern bands like Queens of the Stone Age, anything Dave Grohl's done, I'm pretty much, a fan of. Nirvana, all that stuff. Like, anything where you saw that energy being given to you. Like, it's basically these people are on stage, they're tossing this to you, and then they're feeding off what you're giving back to them.
Yeah. 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 It's definitely a harmonic flow exchange of energy.
Yep.
And that's, more, I think what gets you hooked on a band or an artist is that connection that you can feel like you're building, through that energy exchange, like there's been plenty of bands who like love the album. I go to see them live and I'm just like, that's not translating, like, what's up, guys, and then there's other bands, like I can remember this band called Dark New Day, who I actually discovered them when I was living in Nashville, and they were playing at the riverfront there, doing some concert or whatever, and I actually went to go see Seether, and
Okay. Yeah.
Seether on record, great. Live, I'm like, okay, I can go to sleep right now. But Dark New Day came out, and they just blew me away. And like, because of their performance, I mean, their music's incredibly excellent as well.
Yeah.
But their performance just like sent me over the top. And they're like in one of my top 5 bands right now, just because of that performance aspect and that, really, that vibe of I'm here to serve almost.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know that for years.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's,
right.
I didn't know, oh, you're giving me something and it's like, this is you providing me with something.
Right.
And 2 things I'll say to that before I forget. One is I have incorporated that for myself now every time I get on stage, which is few and far between lately. But the other thing I want to say is I remember when I lived in New York City for 10 years in the 2000s, the first time I went to a rock club and I saw a dude on stage with just a laptop. And it was just, I had this moment where it was very cognitive dissonance for me. I'm like, I came to see a live show.
Right.
Is this live? And that was like the beginning of that debate time when everyone would be like, well, people play with backing tracks. And then you start slicing it. You keep slicing the onion over and over. What's live and what isn't? But I missed that. That is what I miss when I go see, anyone that's like doing everything sitting there, what looks like they're playing solitaire.
Right. Nice.
I used to say they're probably pressing a button and then they're playing solitaire or surfing the internet.
Right. Yeah. And it's a disengagement too. You're in the audience and you don't necessarily know what's going on. You just know that you're not connected.
100%. And we're not creating anything together, really. I guess you could say you're creating a vibe or something, like if the lights are good and then everyone's on the drugs and maybe there's something there.
Right.
But that's not why I'm there. Like I go there to watch someone create something in real time.
Right. Yeah, I want to feel something, because otherwise I could just stay home, turn up my, stereo to 11.
Yeah.
And,
11.
get the same effect. This one goes to 11.
This one goes to 11. Well, the other thing is like the interaction of people on stage. Like,
yeah.
Like, and that doesn't take a lot of people. Like, I don't know if you've ever got to see but they were a formidable band to watch.
Who was that? You froze for a second. Who was that?
The White Stripes.
Okay, no, I've never seen them. I know they're like the 2 people though.
Yeah, they're not. I mean, they're no longer together. But when you see even just those 2 people interacting, it was still like it was explosive. So right. I think even as long as you've got at least 2, it feels like maybe 1 could do it. I don't know. I've maybe seen some good one person bands, but that's what I like. I like going to see that kinetic energy and the interaction of the people.
Right. Yeah. I think of, when you said one man band, I think of like Katie Tunstall.
Oh, she's great.
Like where she's got the looper going, but like she's actually though engaged too, so it doesn't necessarily feel like there's one person. It kind of gives that energy of, there's more going on here than I'm just hitting my looper and playing my guitar and singing, Yeah.
And it's happening. Like you're watching the moments of creation, even if they're songs that she already knew and has rehearsed. It's still, there is a moment of creation that you get to witness. And that's what's awesome about it.
Right. Yeah. So what's the first concert you ever went to?
Ooh, this might be embarrassing. The first real concert I went to was a guy named Howard Jones.
Okay.
Like he was an 80s pop guy.
Mm-hmm.
And it was because it was my first girlfriend and she really liked him. Like, how much stuff do you do where you're like, okay, because it's like you're with this person. Like, I wish it was someone cooler. Like, I wish I had like a, I wish I had some like, you know, it was the Monsters of Rock, man, and there was Black Sabbath, but no, it was this guy Howard Jones. But to be fair, he had a 3-piece band, and he was all over the stage. He had like a keyboard. He was playing like a guitar, like one of those strap things, you know.
Oh yeah.
And you know, I think I was
Guitars or whatever.
keytar. Yeah, keytar. He had a keytar. And I was like 14, and it blew me away. I was like, wow. I mean, it was loud, you know, it was in like a theater.
Right.
How about, what was yours?
My first concert ever was the Go-Go's.
Oh man, what a great band.
And it was actually you're in San Fran area. So this is when I lived in the Bay Area. And I went to see them at UC Berkeley's, I can't think of the Greek Theater. Is the Greek Theater?
The there? Greek. It's a beautiful theater.
Maybe it was there. I don't know. I just remember I went because I was like, 14? It was the summer I just graduated from 8th grade. And the Go-Go's are actually the ones who inspired me to like, oh, I want to be a rock star when I grow up, you know, because I saw them on MTV, like when MTV still played music and all that. I saw their video, Our Lips Are Sealed, and I'd been musical my whole life. I come from a musical family. My grandmother played, you know, different instruments. My mom plays piano. So music has always been in my life. I played instruments since I was like 4 years old. But I never thought of like, oh, I can make a living at it. Like I originally wanted to be a doctor or a dentist. Like that's what it said in my 8th grade book, doctor or dentist. And then like the beginning of 8th grade, I saw the Go-Go's on MTV and I was like, oh, dude, that is so what I want to do when I grow up. Like I'm going to be the Go-Go's next drummer. I was actually playing alto saxophone in the school band.
Oh, right on.
Get this, lessons from Neil Sean's father from Journey.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And I was like, screw this, man. Saxophone's not cool. I'm gonna play drums. Got a drum set.
You needed a rock instrument.
Right. Yeah. I mean, although Quarter Flash made like the saxophone kind of cool.
That's right. They had a sax player.
Yeah.
What was their hit? Harden My Heart.
Harden My Heart. Yeah. That was big in, my days too. Like that
was a great song.
Days. Yeah. But yeah, so.
I feel like the Go-Go's are getting their due right now. Did you watch the documentary?
I haven't seen the documentary yet.
It's great.
I haven't seen the documentary. I live in Austin now. So Kathy Valentine, the bass player, lives here. A few years ago, she's in a band also called the Blue Bonnets.
Okay.
And so a few years ago, I also promote concerts and put on events. So I put on a concert called Women Who Rock.
Yeah.
And I had the Blue Bonnets on the bill. Of course, I had my band on the bill.
Yeah.
And we did a show together, and it was really kind of cool. And it's funny, I sent her an email. She didn't get it till like after the fact, but I was like, I would totally love if you would like come on stage with me and do Our Lips Are Sealed. We're going to do a cover, and she didn't see the email in time. And like, I'm surprisingly really, really, really shy person, like in person.
Oh, interesting.
So when we were all like, roaming around backstage, because we played at Stubbs here in Austin, roaming around, but like I didn't want to talk to them. I was like all scared, like, oh, I can't tell, she's like,
well, I mean, if this is you saw her that long ago,
right?
And it had such an impact on you. And then there she is, and you're probably responsible for her being there on some level. Yeah. That's kind of huge. I mean, I think I would be a little like unable to like, what do I do?
Right. Yeah.
I'd be the same way.
Yeah. So I we did the song, we did the cover, and like she watched and whatnot. And then I was just like, oh, I hope it's so.
Were you stressed out a little bit?
I was a little bit stressed out. Yeah. Cause it wasn't really a flattering key for my voice.
Yeah.
And it was, we played around with some different things, and I kind of wanted to rock it up a little bit too.
Sure.
I thought it was okay,
I'm sure it was great. You know what? You're probably being extra hard on yourself.
Yeah, probably. I those too, but yeah, so it was fun. So she did email me, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm fangirling so hard right now, and she wasn't necessarily my favorite Go-Go. I kind of had a crush on Belinda,
Well, didn't everybody? God, when Belinda went solo,
yeah,
she had that first video for Heaven on Earth.
Right.
And I was just, I mean, I was going through my time, that was one of my videos. I'd be like, oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it was
Yeah.
funny because like, probably everybody around me could figure out I was gay at the time, but I was like, I'm not gay, whatever. You know,
The process.
into my bedroom when I was in 8th grade, if you went into my bedroom, nothing but Go-Go's posters everywhere and photos of Belinda and whatnot. It's like,
well, I mean, I had photos of David Lee Roth, so.
Oh my God. But yeah, I remember like that first concert was totally amazing because I went with my mom because I'm 14. So I had to go,
Yeah, of course.
and we had to get there super early so we could be like first in line because it was general admission. So
Sure. They used to do that.
Gates open, free for all.
Right.
And I had some drumsticks because like I somehow thought maybe I could get them to sign them or whatever.
Oh, that is adorable.
Yeah. And so the gates opened and I took off like a bat out of hell running so I could just get the closest seat up front as possible. My mom's in the back yelling, wait
for me.
I'm just like, no, I gotta go. But yeah, I mean, I had the time of my life. It was amazing. And
that's a great first show.
Yeah.
Do you remember who opened for them?
Belinda was dating the guy in the band. They were like a rockabilly group. Oh my God.
Were they like popular or?
They were somewhat popular, and I can't like the Blasters.
You have to look it up on.
Maybe was it the Blasters, something like that?
That sounds like a great. Yes, I know of them. That sounds like a great guess. I was gonna say.
I'll think of the name at like 3:00 in the morning. I'll wake up. Oh, that was it.
That was the guy.
I think it was there. I think they were called the Blasters. I think so. But yeah, that was.
It's funny to like, and I think you're gonna understand what I say. Like, I remember let's say I remember the first dozen concerts I went to.
Yeah.
And I probably remember the lineups of I remember every band that was on every bill.
Nice.
At every one of those in a way that I can't remember the last concert I went to. Like, okay, like who was the opening act for that? Like, because with time and so much, so many shows, not only shows that you've attended, but shows you've played, there's just such a like binder of bands and musicians that you've witnessed. And it's truly awesome to think about, but it's also kind of like every once in a while I'll have a moment, I'll hear a song on the radio and I'll be like, wait, who is this? And then I'll be like, I saw them. Wait. And it's like I'm playing this little Jenga game in my brain. Like, right. Okay. Like it just happened with, do you remember this band? I think they might even be a Texas band, the Toadies.
Yeah.
So I was in the grocery store and like that song, the big hit came on, the Make Up Your Mind, that one.
Yeah, right.
And I'm listening to it, I'm like, oh shit, the Toadies. And then the second thought I had was, man, I bet they were good live. And then the third thought I had was, wait, I saw them live. And then I had to go through this whole thing. Like, when did I see them? Did they open? Was it a festival? Like, it was just this amazing, like, and that's part of what I love about music is it just kind of opened this little vault in my mind.
Exactly.
Full of all these incredible, like, moments that I had, like, stored away.
Yeah. 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 The power of music. I mean, it just takes you.
Yeah.
You can hear a song and you're right there wherever you were the first time you heard it with whatever was going on.
Yep.
If I hear like Sabbath or Dio or early Ozzy or early Metallica, like I'm back in like high school. I'm driving my red 1968 Pontiac Firebird with the massive stereo system in it. Smoking myself into oblivion with all my friends, just rocking out down the road. It's just like right there. That's so amazing about music.
There's a thing too that like when you said Dio and like Ozzy and that whole time period, I think musicians of our ilk go through that phase no matter what. Like there's that phase. And I remember sitting down learning, like when I actually started learning guitar, I remember sitting down with a lot of those records. And I'll say records because they were literally records or tapes.
Right. Yeah.
Like I remember I had the tape for like maybe Blizzard of Oz, I want to say, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember rewind, try to figure out what he's playing. Rewind, try to figure out what he was playing. Like this was before I knew about Guitar Magazine with like the little tab numbers that told you where to put your fingers. Like, and honestly, there's something I am so happy I went through that for my own personal development. because I think it made me a better listener and it made me a better musician.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's not to like deny somebody that goes on YouTube to learn a song,
Yeah.
right? Like I'm sure there's something to that too, but there is, and I'm trying to be really careful not to like age myself or feel like a back in my day,
Back in the day.
you had to rewind the tape.
Yeah, right.
But that was that was formative. Like it's formative to get your creativity to sit there and like try to get inside the head of the musician that created the song.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know where I was. I don't know where I was going with that. I just like had that moment. I was like, I just remembered trying to learn Ozzy Osbourne and being like, wow,
Yeah.
how does this guy play so fast?
I would race home from school and put on my album and just, you know, just trying to.
Yeah, and you're like, you're all ham-fisted. Like, you're not getting any of the subtlety. You're just like hitting the chords.
Yeah. And then you got to throw in the rock out factor, you know. So
well, that's what really right.
sloppy, you know. So
I remember at some point I'd probably been playing for a couple of years. I remember finally playing in front of the mirror, and that's when shit really took off.
Right? Oh my God. I used to come home from high school and I would go into my bedroom and I'd crank up some Iron Maiden and I'd pretend I was Bruce Dickinson and I'd have my leg up on my bed like that was the stage monitor, you know. And you know. Like,
dude, stage monitor bed.
Totally.
I did that. I remember doing that to learn drums with magazines. I put magazines around my bed and I got drumsticks at the music store and I would just put the radio on and like pretend I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But God, what a like, I mean, not that, you know, it goes without saying, but like, isn't it like, it's amazing to think about like all those moments you had just because you love a song.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I was driving up to a friend's wedding the couple of weeks ago and I'm like, God, I need some new music, right? And I just like went and I grabbed Diary of a Madman CD because I still listen to CDs.
They're making a comeback. I just read an article. They're making a comeback.
Thank God. Like I won't even buy a car if it doesn't have a CD player. Not buying the car. So
I kind of love that. I love that.
My parents hand me down right now, which has a CD player in it, and I just discovered it has a 6 CD changer in it. I was
in the back. What? Is it in the back or in the front?
No, it's in the thing. Yeah.
Oh, like a one of those cartridges.
I guess. No. You just put it in there, and I guess it rotates in the dash in some way.
That is high tech.
Yeah. So, because I was like, what are all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? And I was like, oh shit.
How fun.
Like I've had the car for a year and just figured out like, oh, it's got a CD changer in it. Nice. So I had, I put in Diary of a Madman, Ozzy.
Yeah.
And one thing is to listen to the production.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. Okay. Production's definitely changed.
A lot.
But to just hear those songs and Randy Rhoads was a god.
Yeah.
Like the dude was just, imagine if he was alive today, like the genius godlike stuff that guy would be writing.
Yeah. Cause that was early. Like what did he die when he was 24, 25 or something like that?
Yeah. Really.
You can only imagine where he would have I think he would have been like Eddie Van Halen. He probably would have branched out and been like, more of a composer and done all those things.
Film scores, all kinds of stuff.
You said something I want to bring up. You talked about the production, which I think it's so funny. Like now that we're where we are in our careers as musicians, so much of the way I listen to music now is so different. And when you do put on a record that affected you when you were young, because when you're young, it's visceral. You're just like, whoa, that's amazing. Yeah. And now you put on the same record and you're like, it sounds like they put some clicky click on that bass drum, like you kind of go through this whole weird, like, you're thinking about those choices. Like when you go through the choices of like why they played what they played, that's one stage. But then you get to this, how they put the, the sausage together. And it's fascinating when you listen to those different phases of production, like 70s to 80s to 90s. It's so amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what amazes me now that I'm a singer is like, God, what would I have done before vocal tuning?
Oh yeah.
Sure. Like you, especially like if you just listen to somebody like, some guys you can, you're like, yeah, okay, pull off there, but what could you do?
Well,
tape, you can't auto tune tape, like.
Speaking of Ozzy though, if you listen to it, Like that guy was at least triple tracked, number one.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff there's like a chorus effect going on that's
Yeah.
like
Right.
helping him pitch ride a little bit.
Right.
So
Yeah.
even though we call it auto tune now because it's like a robot that's figuring shit out or whatever, like
Yeah.
they had their ways, man.
Yeah.
And like even the Zeppelin stuff, like you read where like Robert Plant some years ago was like, yeah, they would speed the tape up.
Yeah. Right.
So I wouldn't have to sing so high. I could sing it lower.
Right.
And then they'd put it back to the normal speed. And that's why he sounded like a hyena on a lot of that shit.
Yeah. The last song that I just tracked with my band, it's song 5 on the album that we're working on.
Yeah.
And Alex, the composer piece side to the band, he's got every song's got to be in a different key and different time signatures and all this different stuff. And he turns to me, he's like, "Can you sing in XYZ key?" And I'm like, "I don't know, we'll find out, right?"
We'll find out.
Hit
hit the button.
Yeah. It gives me the track to listen to, and I'm coming up with my melody lines, and I come up to the chorus and I'm like, yeah, this is stretching it in the chorus. I'm like, because I had to switch into head voice.
Yeah.
And like the last time I really sang powerfully in head voice was in college, which was in the 90s.
Right.
So, no need to hit Mariah Carey notes if I'm not singing opera anymore.
Right.
So when I switch to head voice now, it sounds just like all light and fairy and airy and crappy, right? Because I'm a belter, right? And so I'm like trying to get this chorus to sound badass, and I'm switching into the head voice, and it's not working. And I'm going to track the scratch vocal with Alex, and there's this piece at the very last where I try to do like a scream in head voice.
How did that work out?
Alex is like, "Yeah, that frightened me a little bit. Like, you got to try to figure something out for that."
I don't even think I could. I couldn't do it.
So I was like, "Can we switch the key?" And we tried switching the key, and then if I'm singing the verse part, it sounded like crap because I'm like really, really low.
Yeah. Oh, it sucks when you're in that middle ground where you can't like find like a middle octave to hit.
Yeah. So I just tried to do a Bruce Dickinson, and I just belted a long note for a long time.
Yeah.
And that
why not?
So, but I get to this point where I'm like, oh, I need to be all like singing all over the octave scale and the range. And it's like, sing for the song,
Oh,
so
everything for the song. Let the song tell you what it needs. And that's, God, that was years of learning for me, just like having written so many records at this point. Like I think honestly, the less time, it's good to spend time on the craft of making the song, but from the writing perspective, like I try to get the writing done as fast as possible, just like, even if it's just a acoustic guitar and a melody, like scratch, and then you have that time to be like, okay, like, can we change the key? Do we need to change like the instrumentation? Should we add different parts? But I feel like the writing of it should be, for me, and a lot of people don't agree with that, but I think that the writing should be the simplest part. And then that gives you the time to like explore all these other, paths with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So speaking of songs, what's a song that like lyrically is just something that somehow maybe like radically changed your life because of the lyrics, or just really holds a deep, special place in your heart?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm going to have to think about it because there's probably 100 answers I could give.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to go with this answer. It's embarrassing, but we're talking about young age. And I remember hearing In the Air Tonight by Phil Collins. And that song, it kind of scared me a little bit when I first heard it. Like the lyrics are like, he's all spooky and like he's talking about someone drowning and like, I'm not going to save you. And when you're like 12, you're like, this guy's a fucking asshole. He's saying that is someone, if I saw you drowning, I wouldn't help you. Wow. Boom. And then years later, I read an interview with him and he's like, yeah, I improvised all the lyrics. Like it was completely made up.
Wow.
Because people at the time, this was pre-internet, people were like, did you hear Phil Collins? He brought a guy to his show that he sang this song to him. And it was like all this, lies of people making stuff up because he wrote this song that scared people in some way. And I think that was when I was starting to write songs. I remember learning that you can be a character.
Yeah.
Because I never thought about that. Like I always thought when someone wrote like, maybe Michael Bolton, but when someone wrote like a song, they were coming from their own perspective on it.
Right.
And that was when I was, as a young songwriter, I'm like, oh, okay, so I don't have to like go out and shoot a guy named Sue to, you know what I mean?
Right.
Or shoot the whatever dude, whatever. So I think that was big for me.
Yeah.
And that was, there's probably better answers, but that's the one that I just thought of.
Yeah. I would, like, off the top, I have no idea what something like that it would probably have to be something either from Black Sabbath or the first two Ozzy albums, because like lyrically I just related to those albums on such a deep level. I think what's that song, how many times can they fill you with lies and they listen? That's not even the right.
I think that's an Ozzy song though, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's not Sabbath.
Like, is that You Can't Kill Rock and Roll? I think
maybe
it is. I don't know. But like that song, just like, hearing that and thinking like, yeah, Ozzy gets me, man. Ozzy gets me.
Well, listen, that early Sabbath stuff, you listen to those lyrics, there's some deep stuff in there.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like I remember when I was growing up, people were like, oh, they're a bunch of Satan worshiping,
right?
Rapists.
Yeah.
And like you look at it and you're like, no, actually, this is protest music. Like,
yeah.
Like War Pigs is a protest song.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, along those lines, when you're impressionable and you're just you're singing someone else's words, you're feeling the visceralness of it. But sometimes it's later that you're like, oh, like I've been learning something all along.
Yeah.
About how this is affecting my future and how I'm going to view the world. I think that's the thing that I am both grateful for and scared for, which is a lot of my education came from that. Like that was my education.
Right.
You listen to an Ozzy Osbourne, or you listen to like a Black Sabbath song, you listen to a Zeppelin song. All that stuff was like how I was learning who I wanted to be in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And that's like the total, like the theme of this podcast. Like,
yeah.
How has music, impacted and influenced your life? I mean, for you and I, it's made us artists. It's made us people who want to use our voice and our art to, change the world, make the world a better place. And, people in the process, like, I grew up in corporate America family. So every 6 months to 3 years, we were moving somewhere. I went to 3 different high schools. So that's, rough when you're a kid to like, you go make friends and then all of a sudden you got to move again,
Yeah.
And, I was also an only child. I am an only child, still an only child.
I was an only child.
I was.
And I am an only child.
Yes. And I'm an only adult.
Do you think having grown up like that maybe helped draw you to like the idea of touring and like the idea of traveling and
absolutely because I love traveling, and even when we lived different places, we would still travel within those places too.
Yeah.
So a lot of I find like the house that I live in right now, I've lived in the longest of any place I've ever lived in my entire life. I've been here since October of 2012.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I find myself like every now and then getting like this itch, like I need to move, I need to go somewhere, I need to get out of here, like, Well,
especially right now in the last year.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. And I've always been one to say like, I could easily live on a desert island and be as happy as a clam, which is still probably true, but
sure,
at least let me be able to travel that island,
right.
Be able to get around and so, yeah. So like the thing like that really freaked me out when all this hit, and I went into a deep depression over it last May. And, at times I still get into a funk about it, was the whole like traveling is done, like touring is done. Like, are we ever going to see that again? Is it going to come back? And what's it going to look like? Is everybody going to be in a bubble in a field?
Yeah.
Like
these are all
how do you
things.
connect when social physical distancing is the new norm? Like how does that connection happen?
And I think along those lines, and I think we share this, those are places where people can kind of connect on a level they can't just through a computer. Like everyone's there, they're sharing an experience, they're sharing an idea, they're sharing many ideas. And those are the spaces where, we continue to evolve. Like this is where people learn to think because maybe they're at a bar and you could have two people that maybe disagree about everything, but they both know the lyrics to that song.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that, to me, like when all this happened, that's what scares me the most, is the places where people can go to interact around ideas
Yeah.
seem to all be, that's what's being pushed away.
Right.
That's what's being like, let's keep the theaters and the bars and the restaurants, like the places where people go to celebrate being human, really.
Right. And connect and have that, I'm with my tribe, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And as well as I do, like people that don't travel, they tend to have I think they have a much more narrow scope of how they see the world. Like when you go to a strange town and you go to a strange bar with your little band, and you're like a little like tribe. You're like, okay, guys, it looks a little rough. You stand with the van. You're creating this whole moment of how you're going to interact with strangers. And in that comes so much goodness, like so much enrichment and so much empathy for how other people are living. Like so much of what I miss about that. And I gratefully, I got to play a show a couple of weeks ago outside, like finally got to play a show, and it was like 50 people. We could have gone up there and farted into the microphones for 2 hours. They were so just thirsty for that interaction. They just wanted energy coming at them in some shape or form. And I was the same way. I was like, it was like, wow, am I just happy to be here? Like my voice might not be great, guys, but I haven't really used it in a year. So here we go.
Yeah. I keep fantasizing because the production that I have planned for this album, because it's a concept album, is huge. Like,
which is awesome.
And it's going to be like theatrical,
Yeah.
And, I really want it to be sort of an interactive thing with the audience too. So it's like, what's that going to look like? Where am I going to, be able to hold this at?
Yeah.
And what's that going to look like? And
well, it finds a way. We find a way.
Yeah.
Like you just do. Like, it's weird and times are strange, but the spirit that we have to make stuff and display it and give it to people, it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything like staying out of politics, which you and I could talk about for a long time.
Yeah.
I don't think I don't think anything's going to be able to keep that down. It's just a matter of where. Like, let's think about like all the house shows we went to in the 90s when like, I was underage, my band was underage. We couldn't go play in bars. So where did we go? We went to somebody's house and played in their basement. There was a whole scene in the Northeast of that.
Yeah.
That I loved it. Maybe there were only 20 or 30 people there and they were stacked in like sardines, but probably if you were to like give me more time to think about some of my favorite shows, they were in some no-name kid's college basement,
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't think that we're going to lose that at all.
Yeah. And I think the more people are kind of trapped in one place, the more they're going to start being like, okay, we need to get out of this, figure this out, and make things happen. Hopefully that's my knocking on some wood here, hoping that.
I mean, I feel like it's happening, and I just flew for the first time last week.
What was that? I don't want to fly because I don't want to have to wear the friggin'. Yeah.
Again, we could talk about that. A couple things happened. I went into it with I had to go somewhere, and I went into it with a very like I'm just gonna accept what's happening and see what happens. Like I'm not gonna go in. I'm gonna go in knowing what I know, but I'm also not gonna I'm just gonna be a part. And the airport was empty, which was fantastic, right? Airport's empty. Everyone's staying away from me. Also fantastic. I got last on the plane. I'm like, I'm just gonna wait and get on last, even though I know the plane is pretty much the safest part of this whole trip. Safest. Get on the plane. The whole plane is like 30%. Like there's not even, everybody has a row to themselves.
Nice.
And it was like, I'm like, this is actually the way it should always be to fly.
Right? Kick my feet out.
It was actually a pleasant experience. Nice. Up to including all the bullshit with the TSA crap.
Yeah.
There was just no one there. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, cool. maybe this is a positive. I'm going to look at this as a positive.
Yeah.
When I need to fly, it will be a pleasant experience. I will take that. I will take that as a plus.
Yeah. For
And
sure.
then granted, I don't fly that much anymore. I used to a lot, but so it was actually not bad. I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm talking about right now, and it was not
Right,
bad.
right. Yeah, let's not go there.
No.
That's a different podcast.
Oh, no.
I promised my friend. She's
Yeah,
like,
you have to, right? Like,
she's like, now I don't want to listen to a podcast about politics and Rona and all that. I'm like, yeah,
Right.
I know.
And look,
That's
you
why
know,
I've tried to like make my personal Instagram, like it's the only social media I'm on right now is Instagram and Telegram, and I just got a Gab account, but I don't really know how to work it.
sure,
I don't care anyhow, but
you're
my personal Instagram, even though I did do a rant yesterday, I went and deleted it about Fry's closing down, going out of business. But
right.
yeah, personal Instagram is going to be more music and love and light, positivity. Here's what I ate. Here I'm at the gym, you know, stuff
Here's
which
what
I
I ate.
find completely boring. But
Regardless of what's going on in the world, I don't need to know what people eat. Like, you can eat what you want. Like, you can
Yeah.
go for it. I don't need to see a picture.
Well, if it's really, really good, I might share, you know.
Oh, well, yeah, if you made it.
Yeah.
If it's good and natural and wholesome. Here's the other thing I'll say. I think that there is I think there's strength in being an artist right now, because there is a way to get that layer of, you know, like we're chipping away a little bit. And if even one or two people was like, oh, I didn't think about it that way. You know,
Yeah.
you're doing your job. You know, it's not like you and I are out there, you know, copy pasting lyrics from, you know, an algorithm. Like, we're actually saying things, both of us. Like, I know, because I've heard your music, you've heard mine. We're both saying things that matter to us, and in some ways overtly, and in some ways more covertly, which is more that's what I like. I'm a covert.
Yeah.
Like, I like to be. I want people to listen to my record on this level, and then if they decide to go, it's like that Sabbath thing. It's like, if they decide to go that next layer down, cool. I want you to, like,
right.
Like, that's the part that gets me charged up to write, is that you can influence people.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's, you know, one of my pet peeves with the mainstream music industry is, you know, the influence that like certain artists, I won't mention names and stuff like that, but certain artists don't necessarily have the greatest impact and influence, especially on young kids, young girls.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, why is this garbage allowed? Like, this is insane, because we as artists, we have so much power.
Yeah.
And we can use that power for good, you know, like,
yeah.
One of my favorite guys, and, you know, I was another band that I was like, you know, I heard him on the radio, whatnot. Okay, yeah, that's a good song, whatnot. Saw them live and was like, well, these guys are badass, which was Bad Wolves.
Bad Wolves, I don't know them.
They're no longer.
Okay.
Well, they had to, Tommy Vex, who was the lead singer, he had to kind of dissolve himself from the band due to like cancel culture and all this other crap going on. But I started following him and started looking at his stories, and like his authenticity and his integrity and his willingness to say what's on his mind, whether somebody's going to agree with it or not. Like, right. I love the shit out of that in somebody. Like, I respect that so much more than somebody who's like, well, I'm going to be PC and I'm going to play by the rules. And like, I can't stand those kind of people. They make me nutty. Like, but somebody who's willing to put themselves out there, no matter what the consequence, like, yeah, you know, and so, you know, and he's using his power for good now. Like, he's such a badass. He started a GoFundMe thing, which was just to pay back the studio fees that he owed, because he got dropped from the label and he owed them money. And it's now turned into a thing where he's got enough money to pay the studio and start his own record label. And he started a merch line. Great. And he's like, you know, got money to do his own thing. And it's just like, yeah. Like, be an example of that. Like, I want more people in the world, even if you're not an artist, like whatever you do in life, you can influence and impact people in a very positive way, you know?
Well, and you were talking about industry. You used the word industry, which is always a good topic, because I loathe, there's things I loathe, and I understand them, and I won't say I appreciate them, but maybe I can tolerate them. And sometimes, like, I like to say art can sneak through. Like sometimes I don't think like someone might go to like Taco Bell, let's say, and order a bean burrito, let's say, and then maybe they've never had a burrito anywhere else, and they're like, wow, this Pedro's down the street serves burritos. Maybe I'll try one of their burritos. Well, that's kind of the way I look at music. So you
Right.
take someone like a Lady Gaga, who I loathe Lady Gaga. I have many reasons for loathing Lady Gaga. People look at her as this, again, people, strong, independent, influential, like clawed her way to the top. Like this is the story that those people have been sold.
Right.
Great. There might be a young girl out there that hears Lady Gaga and then maybe hears PJ Harvey or maybe hears, Joan Jett, but they wouldn't have ever gone to look for that if it wasn't for that Lady Gaga. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So that's where I have, and you talked to me earlier. I said Phil Collins. Like, look, you don't get much more vanilla white sold to the audiences than Phil Collins, but it starts a trail. Trail of breadcrumbs.
Like don't diss on Phil.
I love Phil. I love Phil. Early Phil. I love Phil.
Like,
he is. Totally. I love him.
Some of his lyrical content, you're just like,
totally,
dude, that's some deep shit. Like, yeah.
And look, he started out with nothing. Like he was he earned his place in the crapathon. But I'm saying I think there is something to be said for that kernel that people can grab.
Right.
And that's, you and I got there,
right.
And we continue to go there. Like you're talking about someone that continues to inspire you because they're digging deeper,
right.
and that's really what you hope for. You hope for to be a part of that for someone. Like you hope that your words or your music or your actions inspire someone to take a step in the good direction of self-thought.
Right. Yeah. Self-thought.
I don't know.
More of that.
I'll still shit on Lady Gaga all day, but
yeah.
But thank you, Lady Gaga, for anyone you've inspired.
Yeah.
I call her Lady Gaga, but I shouldn't say that because there's probably, as a middle-aged white man, I should.
Yeah. We could go down some conspiracy theories, but that's a different podcast on that whole thing.
You could call me for that one too. I'd do that.
Yeah, right. We'll start a separate podcast.
Part 2.
Astrom's Rabbit Holes, Rants, and Red Pills.
Yeah, that would be the bonus tracks on the DVD.
Right, they have the hidden bonus tracks.
Here's the shit we talked about when the mics were off.
Yeah, exactly. If you just let it play for 5 minutes, all of a sudden this pops up. Like in the who are those the movies? I love the movies, but I kind of don't like them anymore because of some conspiracy theory rabbit holes I've gone down. Like the Avengers, right? Is that the Avengers with the Infinity Stones?
I will agree with you. I can't watch that. I can't, like, they're like Lady Gaga, but worse for me. No. I'll listen to Lady Gaga before I'll watch any Marvel or any of that. Like the one, hey, did you see the new whatever? Whatever from the other whatever is in the whatever. Wow, no way. Yeah, whatever. Together.
Although, I do like Wonder Woman because Gal Gadot is hot. Like, dude.
Okay. Yes. I will say, as terrible as that new Wonder Woman movie is.
I haven't seen it. Because I think it's on Netflix and I got rid of Netflix when that whole TV thing came out. But
it's tough. It's a tough one. I mean, it's eye candy. I love the eye candy.
Right.
I'm not gonna.
I mean, yeah.
I'm not gonna deny a bunch of
anything other than eye candy. I mean,
there's again, but someone could watch that, Astrom, and someone could say, this is inspiring me to go run a marathon. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. So you can't. That's where, like, you gotta give credit where art is, no matter where it is, even if it's like the absolute lowest common denominator of commerce that there is.
Yeah. What do we think could be inspired by Cardi B's WAP?
Okay. First of all, I have an opinion. Someone sent me that.
We're going there.
Well, okay. Someone who would never send me anything sent me that.
Oh God!
Like the source of me getting that video, someone putting it on my phone, with no context. Like here, I didn't know. Like it became it's a thing, and I watched it, and I was like, first of all, I don't understand this music. Not like I'm not saying that on a cultural level. Like the music doesn't do anything for me.
Yeah.
But in watching the video, I was like, this is bold. This is bold for right now. Like, it's
Yeah.
bold that anyone would do this.
Yeah.
Now, is it, we could talk for hours about that.
Right.
But I was shocked. Let me put it this way. I wasn't shocked by the content. I was shocked the content made it to me.
Nice.
If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. You need to see this.
It's like, wow. So this is are we manufacturing a cultural moment here? You know? Because you got to ask that every time. Anytime something gets thrown in your face. That's why I started by saying, someone texted me this.
Yeah. Right.
I didn't find it.
Yeah. Yeah. I
What
think
was
I
your-
found it through Nicole Arbor. Do you know who she is?
Uh-uh.
Oh, she's great. You got to follow her on Instagram. She's a comedian. She kind of does it all, like
Yeah.
brains, beauty, the whole 9 yards, like everything. But she does like parodies and stuff like that. But that's how I found the songs, because she was doing some parody where she was pouring champagne on herself in a bra, and
Oh, got it.
On.
Shoot, I got it. Okay. I can get behind that. I like that stuff.
I'll see if I can find it and send it to you. But yeah.
Isn't it funny that like most of the time that's the stuff you see first?
Right.
Like you'll see the parody of the thing,
Right.
you know, or the Saturday Night Live version or whatever. Like, and then you're like, oh, there's a thing. I guess I should go find that thing.
Yeah.
So I'm not out of, I don't want to be off. I don't want to be out of the loop. Got to find that thing.
Right. Yeah. FOMO, man. FOMO.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wild times.
Yeah. Well, I know we're getting near the end. I know you gotta bolt here in a little bit. What would be some final words of wisdom you have for people, either, you know, since we're both artists, people wanting to get into the music business other than don't, or, you know, anything you want to pimp your music, like whatever you want to do, like go. Stage.
Yo, I think it's funny you're asking me this, because, you know, I just had a daughter in July, my first and only child.
Cancer?
Leo Cancer cusp.
What's the date?
July 21st.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I think almost by a day or two.
Okay. Cool.
But Cancers, I always get along with Cancers.
Yeah.
They're some of my favorite.
We're the greatest. I'm just saying.
I'm an Aquarius.
Okay.
I've
been noticing I've been making some connections with Aquariuses here. You guys are cool. So the cool signs, I know we're getting off here. The cool signs are Cancers, Virgos, Aquarius, Pisces. I'll kind of leave it at that for now. I would say Leo. No, Leos. I know some good Leos. Yeah. So
Leos. I tend to like. We're either like love fest or probably not. It's probably not going to work. There's definitely something to that, but So I had my daughter, and I think the thing I would say is, like, creativity is such a it's in everything, and I've never it's my greatest release of all time, right? Like, this is the 9 months in the making, like, here it comes. And what I think I will say is, I think everyone should just make stuff as much as they can. Like, and I mean that from, like, you should make your breakfast, like, you know, make your food, make your you know, try to do stuff on your own. Like, if you want a table, try making a table. Like, use your hands and, like, get in there, because the idea of creating, once you like nurture that spirit inside you, which I think everyone has, whether they tap into it or not is a different thing. Your whole life is going to be better. You're just going to have a better time in this life if you just focus on making shit.
Absolutely.
You know, I think that's the big thing. And then from a songwriting perspective, just write songs. Like, write as many songs as you can. Like I don't know about you, but I've met people that have spent like years antagonizing over like one album.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not talking about like a year. I'm talking about 5 years ago, they're like, I think I'm going to be a songwriter. You're like, okay. And then 5 years later, they're like, so I'm thinking about the mix of this record or whatever. And I'm like, just put the shit out, like, keep going. Because the more you get stuck, and that's not to say you shouldn't focus on craft. That's a different thing. But the more you get stuck on something, I think the staler it gets.
Yeah.
For you as a person.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you get all heady, and this isn't necessarily a head thing.
Right.
I mean, it's a head thing when you go to actually crafting the thing out.
Yeah.
You've got to have your head game, depending on what format you're following and whatnot.
Yep.
But the creative process just shut your
Yeah.
mind off and become that channel to that greater source, whatever the heck it is, whatever you want to call it, God, energy, universe.
Yep.
Just tune into that and let it come out. I mean, that's, you know, I
Yep.
think that's what we're here to do, is just allow that to express through human form in whatever way, you know. I mean, music, art, writing, taking pictures, planting a garden, making a table.
Yeah.
Um,
Everywhere.
everything. Just do it with creativity.
Yep.
And purpose.
My engineer, whose birthday it is today, the guy I've worked with for like the last 10 years pretty consistently, Jacob, he and I have a phrase, and we always remember it when we're in the studio, which is record fast, mix slow.
Yeah.
And that's always like, that's our mantra. Like,
yeah.
if I'm spending way too long on a vocal take, there's something wrong.
Right. Exactly.
If we're spending way too long on a guitar part, there's something wrong. Like,
yeah.
Get it down.
Yeah.
Mix it slow.
Exactly. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, this was awesome. Thanks for asking me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And thank you so much for being my first guinea pig on the show.
Heck yeah. Anytime.
I think it went pretty good. Well,
that was great. I'm excited to hear the next, when the thing's done, I'm excited to hear it all.
Yeah. That's going to be an interesting feat in itself, figuring out how to do that, edit some shit in here and there. You know, anyhow, yeah. So thank you so much. Thank you to all the listeners and watchers out there. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff. I'm not even sure where I'm going to actually put this, probably YouTube to start and then share it from there. But
awesome.
Do all the things you need to do to help support the arts, man, support creativity and
support each other.
If you got something from this, if you were somehow inspired, uplifted, or empowered from this conversation, you know, drop a note and let us know what that was. Cause you know, it makes us feel good.
It does. We need that dopamine, man.
We need that dopamine hit, man. You know?
We can't get it on stage, so we got to take it.
Exactly. We're looking for it, you know.
Come on.
Yeah. Anyhow,
well,
so
thanks,
we'll
Astrum.
see you next time, whenever that might be. And thank you again, Greg. Check out Greg. I'm going to put links to all his stuff, so you can check out his music. It's awesome.
Thanks.
And yeah, rock on, everybody. Woo-woo.